Good Wednesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock, time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Plenty of Browns to talk about. NFL world that is not getting ready for the Super Bowl is down in Mobile, Alabama. Senior Bowl week, they like to say. The draft starts here at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. Day 2 of practices. Let's take a look at some guys that have opened some eyes thus far. One of them, a defensive lineman from the Bowling Green State University Falcons, doing drills, highly rated by Pro Football Focus. Here's Mike Renner with more on Carl Brooks from Bowling Green.
My last guy from the American squad is none other than Carl Brooks, the highest grade defensive lineman in college football this past season.
He was awesome.
Bowling Green, played defensive end, stand-up outside linebacker even at times. But he's 300 pounds. He's
Right.
300 pounds. He's going to play in the interior in the NFL. He's not an outside linebacker. And they had him play in the interior here, and he was still clowning interior offensive lineman. He just has such good hands, such active hands that are uncoachable to the degree that he has it. Powerfully built, lower half, upper half. Not the best length, only 32.25-inch arms, but there are a number of guys doing it at the NFL level with that short arms, whether it's Siobhan Hargrave, Ed Oliver, Kenny Clark, that I think he can be the next in that lineage of just unique power players on the interior. I think Carl Brooks, he was one of the biggest standouts today.
No, I agree with you completely. He was somebody who definitely made some money, as the saying goes, today on day 1 of the Senior Bowl.
With that, let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Lockdown Browns podcast. And Jeff, I like the names of the defensive tackles they're talking about. Carl Brooks figures to be available, mid-rounds probably. So that is a guy to keep an eye on for the Browns. And it seems like every year there's a couple guys from the Mid-American Conference that pop in the NFL.
Well, when you go to a school like that, there's a lot of opportunity where you might get to play, 3 full seasons, possibly 4 full seasons. So you get a lot of reps under your belt. A player like Carl Brooks, and it's actually funny the way the guys mentioned the fact that he did play some stand-up. For me, it gives me a little flashes, maybe Sheldon Richardson back in the day. I know before he got to the Browns, people maybe didn't follow his career. But with the New York Jets, there were times where he played, stand-up edge like T.J. Watt in the 3-4. Jets had deficiencies. They thought Sheldon Richardson could do that job for them, so there were times where they put him out there. Length, sometimes length isn't the greatest thing in the world. If you can, it'll slow you down on your power. And you see what the guys are talking about there with a player like Carl Brooks. His first initial punch is good, is quick. So something like that where with more length probably would slow down, the violentness of his hands, what he's getting done. For a guy like Bowling Green, obviously it's a big, coming from Bowling Green, it's a big step up in competition. You have another one, Keanu Benton out of Wisconsin. Here's a guy a little bit bigger, 315. He's been showing swim moves this week. He's been pretty much unstoppable in the middle. The Browns can have a lot of options to go to defensive tackle wise. Even if they held a first round pick, it'd be tough. There's maybe one that you would consider that high in the draft, and maybe Jalen Carter out of Georgia. But the Browns, look, we've been down this road before. We've done this dance before. We've taken guys on day 2. We've taken guys on day 3 at the defensive tackle position. I just hope for the Browns that they're trying to maybe self-scout themselves at this point and say, look, we've taken 3 guys 3 years in a row at the defensive tackle position. We really haven't gotten the return on the investment that we wanted. So hopefully all this is, being looked over very, very, very with the big eyes of Jim Schwartz basically saying, you know what, I'm looking for particular traits. PFF is something the Browns use. Jordan Elliott was one of the top-rated PFF guys the year he came out. I hope maybe the Browns are understanding that if they're going to give this defense to Jim Schwartz, they're basically going to all unison look at this through Jim Schwartz's eyes.
Yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. That's somebody who you want to tap into what he sees from the defensive line because he knows what he's looking for. Another guy that has looked good in the early going is a wide receiver. So this is Michael Wilson, still early in Senior Bowl week. Wide receiver, making a good first impression. Now, the one thing I'll say about Wilson is his speed is not eye-popping. It's 4.5, so not bad, but not the type of guy to stretch things out. Here are the PFF college guys' thoughts on what Wilson has done.
I did not watch Michael Wilson film before this week. I didn't. Michael Wilson is the wide receiver from Stanford. It took all of 2 reps that I saw from him to be like, all right, ball player. Yep, this kid's good. The release that he had against his teammate, Kai Blue Kelly, which all right, so maybe he knows
Yeah.
Kelly's weaknesses a little bit, so maybe he got him. But, like, he just absolutely cooked him on the line of scrimmage. And then there was another rep immediately after that where he was running a comeback. And he was able to sell it so well, hit the cornerback's blind spot, get him totally turned around, and then, boom, flip his hips the opposite way, totally open towards the sideline to get that pass. And there wasn't even a contested catch for it because he had already turned the corner around. It just felt like Wilson was such a great route runner in an event that has an opportunity to really shine a light on those players who are running savants. He was one of them. And I thought that outside of maybe if you want to call Tank Dell because of what he was able to do from an athletic standpoint with route running, this guy was an artist, I feel like, in how he set corners up.
And again, Jeff, when you talk about route running, Browns have that in Amari Cooper. It might be a little bit of a duplication in skill set, but it's certainly a guy to watch for later rounds.
You like the size, you like the length. The video footage you saw there, the footwork. And I think the footwork, the part that impresses you the most is, sensing when he's got his opponent beat and then obviously planting, redirecting, and then basically leaving somebody in the dust. For a guy like Michael Wilson, and, as Trevor Skama had said it from PFF, it's not a guy that many people knew of. But you get in a situation sometimes where you're at a school, and right now Michael Wilson gets down to Mobile, Alabama, and he's playing with quarterbacks. All of them are better than any quarterback he played with his time at Stanford. So it's not a question of maybe that we didn't know about Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson wasn't good. Look, Stanford obviously wasn't a good season. David Shaw's time there is over after, more than a decade. His time out in Palo Alto. Sometimes when you get players out and you get them into the All-Star games, you start to see more of them. You start to see them in a different light. You start to see them in a different breath because, they get kind of, bodged down by the team they're playing for, whether it's successful or not. But you get a guy like this, clean slate. And that's the biggest thing with a lot of guys that go to these All-Star games is, being able to understand how important it is. And you'll hear, sometimes, and it's good that you hear every now and then that a guy maybe struggles on day one, because talks that I've had with people down there, one of the things they want to hear is maybe a guy struggled. And then some coaches sit with him and say, hey, if you tweak this like this, if you do this like this. So then when they go back out on day two, when they go back out on day three, they want to see how fast guys can absorb coaching. Look, nobody's a finished product that's at Mobile. It's never the case. If you're a finished product, you don't go to Mobile, or you already declared for the draft early. Guys down there, they need work on their game. And one of the biggest things, again, that I've talked to people over the years, is they like to see guys be able to go in, watch their own film at the end of the night, talk with some of the coaches they're working with during the week, and make and adapt what they can do so they can be more successful in practices 2 and 3 leading up to the week has gone on. But a guy like Michael Wilson, you look at the body size, first thing you think, kind of similar body type to Donovan Peoples-Jones. And look, 6'1" wide receivers, even if it's 4 or 5, hey, not everybody runs 4.3. You can be more than successful at 4 or 5. Most important thing is run good routes, catch the ball when it's thrown to you.
All right, this is concerning. This is a chart, average time to throw versus average receiver separation 2022. X-axis, average time to throw. Y-axis, average receiver separation. So you see the Browns, they had decent amount of time to throw. Not great, but decent. Separation is the worst in the league. And that shows it graphically, what we have kind of seen, even though Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones had pretty good years, not getting the separation. And that's one of the things they got to find if they're going to throw the ball a lot with Deshaun Watson. You got to find somebody that's getting separation.
Well, it's the key. And, and I think it does obviously highlight how well Jacoby Brissett played. And maybe we understand why maybe Deshaun Watson struggled a little bit the way he did. That's where maybe the rust would come in. If guys aren't just getting wide open and making easy throws for you, and, I don't care if it's Patrick Mahomes, I don't care if it's Jalen Hurts, I don't care if it's Josh Allen, sometimes these guys get a lot of easy throws. That's great. Obviously your scheme did things. Your players, took advantage of what was schemed and obviously got open and created a ton of separation. This is where, these discussions get a little difficult as far as, what the Browns might be looking for to add to the wide receiver room. Yes, there's a bunch of young guys here. But look, even still, those guys, they are part of that number. They are part of the fact that there's not a ton of separation. So I know everybody, there's names like DeAndre Hopkins, this, that, and the other thing, tossing around a lot of names like veterans that have that. Normally, for me, I mean, you want to be looking younger here. You want to be looking quicker. It's not necessarily a speed thing as much as a quick thing, how fast guys are with their short area quickness, how fast they are in their routes. to get and create wide open throws for their quarterback. Even still, where the quarterback might come off a read 2 right away, just because read 3, he can see how quickly and getting the ball as quickly as he can, obviously for chunk plays. So there's a lot of questions that got to be answered as far as what exactly the Browns need in that room, because I think there's definitely some confusion as, people just seem to want to throw the same type of guys into the room. But that's not necessarily going to change these numbers and make them go in the Browns' favor.
All right, along those lines, this is from Jack Duffin, Orange and Brown Reports. These are wide receivers that have been talked about and what the value the Browns might have to give up to get them, as well as contract they might be looking for. So a lot of information here. DeAndre Hopkins, he's figuring it's going to take either a third-round pick or Wyatt Teller, and then it's going to take about $52.5 million over 3 years, new deal. Tyler Lockett, second-round pick, doesn't think the Seahawks will trade him. It would be 3 years in the neighborhood of $44 million. Brandon Cooks, guessing a second-round pick, $35 million for 2 years. Jerry Jeudy, second-round pick, or Greg Newsome, $75.5 million over 5 years. So that's an extension. Adam Thielen, a little bit older guy, third-round pick, still better than $15 million a year. Elijah Moore, third-round pick or JOK, $3.35 million, 2 years. Of those, who intrigues you, and who do you think might have some legs that the Browns might look at and say, we can do something with him?
Well, Nuke Hopkins, look, we're talking about a player that's 2 years older than Amari Cooper. He's going to cost a ton of money. Already had an incident in his career using PEDs, so there's a guy basically telling you himself he's not the man he used to be. Tyler Lockett, once a great name. I don't know necessarily, you're not getting any younger position. You're certainly not getting any quicker at the position. Brandon Cooks, again, same thing here. I mean, you're paying a lot of money for age. Jerry Jeudy, that would be ideal, but there is no way Sean Payton took that job with the Denver Broncos and is hoping to resurrect Russell Wilson's career and is going to say, let's trade away Jerry Jeudy. That one makes no sense whatsoever. Adam Thielen, look, he looked slow inside in Minnesota last year. A hard pass for me as well. Elijah Moore is a guy I loved to come to Cleveland here originally during his draft cycle. Can the relationships be repaired? I think they can. The other thing is we still have to see what the New York Jets are going to do at the quarterback position. But if there is an inkling, an opening, a possibility that there's a way you can get your hands on Elijah Moore, that fits. There's no question. He is a guy that can get open and get open quickly. He can create separation for a smaller guy. He works extremely well between the hash marks. You go back to games when he was, his last year at Ole Miss. He's lighting up every big-time SEC school. I think it was Alabama game. He had 14 receptions. The Alabama defensive backs had no answer for him. You go through that list. Look, there's a lot of veterans that are, are away from the players they were. You're trying to find maybe essentially to get a guy here who can still be better within this league. Of that list of names, Elijah Moore, for me, without a question, would be the guy, and that's with the assumption that Jerry Jeudy is not going to be going anywhere.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And Elijah Moore is a guy that they didn't throw the ball to very much in New York, so you might be able to get him at a reasonable price. Jeff Lloyd from Locked On Browns podcast, now going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, talk a little defense, head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey guys, the Browns need someone at defensive end to replace J.D. Clowney. Watched your show yesterday and saw Dermonte Jones as a possible defensive tackle solution for our team. We'd love to get him back to Ohio. Looks like he comes in at about 281 pounds. That seems pretty light for a defensive tackle. Could he play defensive end instead at that weight or even lose a couple of pounds? Could he be a clone of a 9-sack J.D. Clowney, then go inside like Clowney did on passing downs? Then the Browns would need to add a situational pass rusher, hopefully on a cheaper contract to help add some help to the line, like we used Tack McKinley in 2021. Maybe Arden Key could be had for a friendly contract, or someone in the building takes a step upward. Your thoughts would be appreciated. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jeff, Draymond Jones is a guy that they do bounce around. I don't know if they would think of him as a defensive end. He does have some flexibility, but I'm not sure he's got the skill set that they want as that bookend.
The question would be, I mean, Draymond Jones, he's certainly interesting, and certainly I have my eyes on for the Cleveland Browns. But you look at Jim Schwartz, he likes to rotate in his defensive line play. He's like guys that he would like to play, in earlier situations, more run predictable downs, 1st and 10, etc. Maybe that's not the best fit for a situation for like Draymond Jones. And, maybe he can contribute on the outside. But if there's an opportunity where he comes a little cheaper and you're talking about Draymond Jones playing on the interior nickel and dime situations, I think that certainly has some appeal to Jim Schwartz and certainly to the Cleveland Browns. Another name to look out for, a former Denver Bronco, played this past season with the Tennessee Titans, DeMarcus Walker. DeMarcus Walker, similar build and almost kind of like has that tweener build where he's not big enough for the interior and maybe, a little bit too big for the outside. But DeMarcus Walker obviously was involved with the Jim Schwartz defense last season, had his best season as a pro with 7 sacks for the Tennessee Titans. You look at the numbers for the obviously the number that, the Browns put up, getting after the quarterback, it was a very, very low number. You look at a team like the Philadelphia Eagles who were going to the Super Bowl who had 3 individuals over double digits in sacks. This is going to be a huge focus for Jim Schwartz, is finding some run pluggers and just making sure he's got 5-6 pass rushers, because he never wants to get in a situation where guys are going to be tired. He never wants to get in a situation where guys are gassed, continuously wants to run bodies on and off the field. There's going to be a lot of guys in the conversations as far as the Cleveland Browns is who they are bringing in the fold of the defensive line position. But names like Draymond Jones and certainly DeMarcus Walker, these are names that'll fit because they can certainly serve in more than one capacity.
All right. Along those lines, offseason needs for all 32 teams, according to Pro Football Focus. Browns, it's no secret, interior defensive line play. 3 of the 4 players who played at least 200 snaps for the Browns earned an overall grade of 41.6 or worse. Taven Bryant's 23 pressures from 359 pass rushing snaps led that group. Without belaboring the point, that's awful.
There's no way around it. And what the saddest part is we all came away from it. Taven Bryan didn't have that terrible of a season. Well, when you look at the rest of what everybody else did, yeah, I mean, doing something is obviously better than doing nothing. And this is what led to your hire of Jim Schwartz. And it's basically the Cleveland Browns saying, look, we think we've done some really good things here in our 3 years run here, as we are running the Cleveland Browns. But if you were to ask them to admit, and if they didn't, they probably would be foolish to, they have not had the right recipe for handling the interior defensive line. You go back 2 years ago, it was Malik McDowell and Malik Jackson. They kind of got lucky, found Malik McDowell basically just been in a better place in his life. He came in, did some good things, not great things. Malik Jackson, here was a guy who was an undersized defensive tackle. This guy, most of his career, was a good player in nickel and dime situations. Browns put him out there as a starting defensive tackle, and he showed his warts, obviously, against the run. He wasn't really able to contribute there. So the question has been, even though if they were taking players, bringing free agents in, or they are attacking these holes through the draft, they haven't gotten it right either way. And that's a big, big thing. So you have to kind of change the way you're looking at players. Maybe things that you think are a true positive, maybe aren't. Maybe things that you're overlooking and saying, oh, well, we can coach that up. Maybe you need to basically put a keener eye on that. because it's been an issue. It's been a real issue for this team. And look, it's not even just been the Barry Stefanski regime. This has been a problem since I've been covering this team since 2017. They just can't really get the right recipe on interior defensive line play.
All right, 3 Browns defenders with the most money to gain from Jim Schwartz's hire as the defensive coordinator. They go with Grant Delpit, Jordan Elliott, Jacob Phillips. With 1 year to prove they are worth a second contract, big or small, Delpit, Elliott, Phillips had the most to gain from the change from Woods to Schwartz. If 2 of the 3 earn bigger contracts than currently expected, defense will likely be at a whole new level in 2023. And there will be, I shouldn't say that as definitively, you would expect there are a couple of guys that are currently here who elevate their play, because Jim Schwartz is going to ask them to do some different things that they weren't being asked to do.
Well, I think right off the bat, Grant Delpit, but I think this might also be more the case of Grant Delpit himself. Last year, 2021 season, obviously coming back from the Achilles, finally getting into the NFL, getting used to play speed while you're not 100%, but you saw a very, very vastly improved player this year. Led the team in tackles, 3 interceptions. You saw some big, big plays from Grant Delpit. As far as other guys, Jordan Elliott, look, it's going to be tough. Look, I mean, other than Perrion Winfrey, I don't know if there's a defensive tackle on his roster right now that I would consider safe. And the only reason I'm going to say it about Perrion is because he's only going into his second year, and he's going to be going into a defensive system that probably is going to appreciate a player his size and his skill set a little bit more. Jacob Phillips is a player I've always enjoyed, but it's kind of been the same thing every year for Jacob Phillips. A lot of missed time. And it certainly didn't help Jacob Phillips that, when he was, playing a lot of playing time, this team didn't have answers for the run. The Atlanta Falcons game, he was one of the linebackers out there. As the season went on, you got better play against the run, but that was from, veterans, Reggie Ragland. And of course, linebacker was brought over from the Atlanta Falcons as well. It's a really tough spot. That linebacker room, you think JOK in year 3 is probably going to put it all together here if you're able to put the right defensive tackles in front of him to keep him clean so he can basically just sit back and attack. Linebacker wise, though, it's going to be really, really difficult because I think the Browns with Jim Schwartz are going to want somebody like Anthony Walker here, somebody who is basically a veteran, is a signal caller, is vocal, and is really, really good in the coverage aspect of his job. The linebacker room right now is a really, really tough one to figure out for the Cleveland Browns because there's a lot of names. You've got a lot of free agents. Obviously, Walker's a free agent. Ragland's a free agent. Sione Takitaki is a free agent. It's a really, really difficult room to look at. And when you sit down with Jim Schwartz might just say, hey, look, I'm not sure if any one of these guys, even at their top level, is something I can work with here. So there's going to be a lot of changes coming to that linebacker room. And even though they went really deep last year because they had to with playing almost 8-9 linebackers, throughout the course of the season, there's a good chance we might only see JOK and maybe the guys who still have a contract left, which would maybe be Jacob Phillips, JOK, and I'm not sure about anybody else.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast and I going to step aside, take another quick timeout. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Plus, does Tom Brady's retirement announcement today affect who might be available for the Browns? Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, Craig from Cleveland. Great show as always. I got a couple of scenarios for you. Let me just get your opinion. They say Browns are going to make a big splash in free agency. I would go after Marcus Davenport. Then I wonder if the Colts maybe some way we could put DeForest Buckner away from them. I'd even give a second and a fifth for the guy. I'm sure he wants to change the scenery after last year. And then on the wide receiver, Cooper, TPJ, and what about Hakeem Grant? How's he doing on his injury recovery? He would make a good slot receiver. And as always, Dave, love you, brother. Be safe, and I'll talk to you later.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jeff, I like DeForest Buckner. I kind of like the way, I don't know if it would be DeForest Buckner, but that kind of guy makes sense. Grant, we haven't heard anything about his injury. Probably won't until they go to OTAs and they get him back. He was an interesting guy. He's more like the fourth, fifth receiver. They need a second, third receiver if you're going to be running 3 wide receiver sets like I think they will with Deshaun Watson.
Well, first when you hear the name Marcus Davenport, you're coming off a half-sack season. Marcus Davenport's been injured a lot in his career. So the question would be, would it be money? Because if we do know one thing, the Browns always kind of like to gamble on former first-round picks. So, but it's a weak class at the edge position. So is somebody going to be willing to pay more? Could the Browns get in a position where, hey, it's 1 year, it's a low salary amount, and, basically a chance to resurrect your career if it gets you to the point where you play your way out of Cleveland? We kind of understand that. You get to DeForest Buckner, absolutely fantastic player, truly is. He is going to cost a ton of money. He is going to cost assets. So you want to do it? I'm in. I truly am. I'm not sure, what the asking price is. It would start with pick 42 overall. That's certainly something you're going to have to look at. But would he make that much of a difference? In my belief, absolutely. He would make a tremendous difference. A great player, consummate pro, leader. Jakeem Grant, I think people maybe got a little bit misconstrued exactly what Jakeem Grant was going to do here. And I agree with your point, Dave, as maybe a fourth, fifth wide receiver. I think the Browns signed him more to solidify return roles. That is what their ultimate end game was with Jakeem Grant. Obviously, with him missing the entire season, but you found some bright spots. Donovan Peoples-Jones being more comfortable, being more successful, went back to being the punt returner he was at the University of Michigan. You found a little gold in Jerome Ford as a kick returner. It seemed like Jerome had basically one big kick return per week. So, with Jakeem Grant, factoring in his age, factoring in that's the Achilles, it's hard to tell, but he's going to be an uphill battle, when he gets to OTAs, when he gets to camp, because there's going to be that glutton of young receivers that the Browns are going to hope at least maybe one or two take a step up. So you have to see the way all that shakes out. And, we'll start to learn more here over the next couple of weeks. And then once the NFL Combine weekend kicks around, you get a better idea of where, NFL franchises, feel they're looking, feel what they need, understand maybe players that they're moving on from.
Earlier today, Tom Brady announced his retirement. That leads to some questions with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A veteran team, are they going to kind of burn it down and go from the beginning? If so, these are some names to keep an eye on. You would have to trade for Mike Evans, Shaquille Barrett, Vita Vea, defensive tackle. It's intriguing. Devin White, Chris Godwin, cornerback Carlton Davis. Free agency. These guys will be free agents coming up. Levante David, a linebacker. Edge rusher Akeem Hicks. Wide receiver Julio Jones. I don't know about that. That's a little bit old for me. Mike Edwards, safety. Keanu O'Neal, Logan Ryan, and Carl Nassib. Any of those guys intrigue you at all, Jeff?
Not a ton. I mean, Vita Vea is a fantastic player, but, you're talking about a player who's going to probably command a salary in the range of what you're already paying Myles Garrett. I think the Browns would like to take another big number. They're going to commit money to the defensive line room. But if you're going to say it's $18, $19 million, I think the Browns would like to chop that up maybe between 3 players. So they're bringing in, 3 rotational players, all guys that can do things, as opposed to relying on one player. Levante David, at this point, getting a tad bit older. Devin White, Devin White's a great player, but again, he's headed towards, big money. And if you look at it and, look, Tom Brady was excellent last year. He played very well last year. But you look at what's there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and you look at the rest of that NFC South division, which isn't very good. If the Buccaneers are able to just find stable quarterback play, they should certainly be in contention to win the NFC South again. And the other thing is, come on, he was 45 years old. I know the Tampa Bay Buccaneers knew either A, retirement was possible, or B, he's rumored, whether it's with San Francisco, whether it was Las Vegas, maybe whether it was even Miami, they understood that maybe there was a good chance Tom Brady was not going to play football for the Buccaneers next year anyway. So I don't know necessarily that they're just going to go strip everything down to, the studs and the brass tacks to, go tank to see what quarterback might be available in 2024. It's still a pretty good football team. Todd Bowles needs to coach a little bit better. But if they find adequate quarterback play, I still think they're a team that could easily win the NFC South next year.
All right, before we go to break, 10 free agent wide receivers that are out there. This is from NBC Sports. So number 1, Jacoby Myers from the Patriots, 26 years old, 6 touchdown passes. You see his numbers. Number 2, Juju Smith-Schuster, also 26, almost 1,000 yards, 3 touchdowns for the Chiefs. Number 3, Allen Lazard. You see the numbers for the Packers, 27 years old. This is a top 10 list. Number 6, Paris Campbell, 26, kind of ascending. First year where he has done pretty well for the Colts. Number 7, Mecole Hardman, 25 for the Chiefs. Has been banged up, so those catch total a little lower. When you look at those guys, anybody there intrigue you as far as skill set and fit for the Browns?
Juju Smith, Mecole Hardman, definitely some appeal with both of those players. And you look, you had success in Kansas City. In Kansas City, look, a lot of jet sweep motion, a lot of things that come off, the jet sweep motion, obviously the jet sweep itself, screen games that can come from that as well. These are players for me that definitely are appealing here. Again, everybody, when they say the Browns need to get more speed, possibly more separation in the wide receiver room, you're basically automatically thinking that maybe you want a player, Randy Moss-ish. No, I mean, this is a guy who, you're looking for guys who are, 2-3 steps into the route, have already won their route, and therefore are wide open and are open for a second and a half. So it gives your quarterback either A, time to find them, or B, able to work the route with them till they have the passing window to get the ball to them in space. Juju, obviously a lot of success in Pittsburgh, a lot of success in Kansas City. Mecole Hardman, and we'll see if he's able to go for the Super Bowl. Both of those guys banged up in the AFC Championship game. Mecole Hardman, I think he's a guy who is in Kansas City, and it's difficult for him because there's a lot of guys, and maybe for some, maybe they'd like to see Mecole Hardman maybe get a little bit more piece, of the action, so to speak. I think the Browns could offer him that. I think maybe he's a little, certainly gives you a better Anthony Schwartz, a more proven type of player that can do those things. And the other thing is speed. His speed speaks for itself. And again, it's somebody on the field that regardless, even if he's not the top option, you've got to make sure you've got deep help looking at a player like this. Otherwise, you're in a position, where you're getting blazed down the middle for 70 yards as opposed to making a team go 8, 9, 10 yards on a drive, to score on you. But those two names right there, definitely appealing to me. I think you can kind of keep them in the roles they were with Kansas City, bring them over here, maybe expand on those roles. And it just gives you more avenues here for Deshaun Watson and Kevin Stefanski.
All right, so of the wide receivers we've talked about, you like Elijah Moore, you like Hardman, you like Juju Smith-Schuster.
Paris Campbell as well. This is another guy that can do those types of things. You saw it at Ohio State. Jet sweeps, hand the ball a little bit, just, utilize that speed that he has 100%.
Of those 4, you only get one. Which one you taking?
If you can get Elijah Moore out of New York, you absolutely do it. I mean, I would say you literally send the private jet right now, because here is a guy, and he probably not, you wouldn't get Elijah Moore to admit this, but I'm sure as he sat there and watched that selection of Garrett Wilson, the first thing he thought was, well, why? I had a very successful rookie year. I've already played with Zach Wilson. Granted, things in New York have changed a ton. But with Elijah Moore, a guy who I think is certainly capable of 100 receptions per season, now you've got maybe a little bit aggravated, a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He gets to come here, gets to play with Deshaun Watson, hopefully resurrect his career. If you can get Elijah Moore, by all means, that is something I am 110% in on.
Yep, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Jeff Lloyd and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, plus some guys that are going to be fighting to earn a spot on this roster. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
The
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hello, this is Tom. I listen to your show a lot. I just wondered when the Browns may get some reasonably good management, because that seems to be what the problem is. The management's been terrible for decades. Please give me your comments on that, and thank you.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. And, Jeff, I get fans' frustration, and you can't really argue with it. The proof has been what's been on the field. I at least see what they're doing management-wise the last couple years under Andrew Berry. Now, it's not always been successful, but there were times before Andrew Berry where I didn't see what the plan was.
No. And look, and you want to take this back, and you go to year one, and a year where they were so limited, obviously, due to COVID, no OTAs, an abbreviated training camp, no exhibition games, and you see the success they were able to have that year. Then you get to year two, Baker's shoulder blows up, and you have a guy who wants to be out there, probably shouldn't have been out there. The losses start mounting. Then you make this move in the offseason, and you make this move for this guy at the quarterback position who you think is an absolute star, and then you get the final word, basically 2 weeks before the season starts, that you're not going to have him for the first 11 games. So that certainly puts you in a position that's really, really difficult. I mean, it's really, really hard to expect any backup quarterback to carry the water for 11 games. And Jacoby Brissett played certainly admirably, certainly played well. Nobody saw the defense falling off as far as they did. I get it. And, this is the thing, though. I mean, you can poll 10 different fans and ask them what they think is wrong with the team right now, and most likely you'll get 10 different answers. It's kind of how everybody views everything. Do you want to say that Andrew Berry in 3 drafts to this point has not drafted anybody that's gone to a Pro Bowl? Yeah, that's a fair question. It's a fair assessment. It's a fair statement to make. Has some of his free agent picks worked? Yes. Have some of them not worked? Yes. But it's a body of work, and as basically anyone will tell you is wins cure all. But when you're not winning, you can find a lot of ways to pick apart any franchise.
Yeah, and again, you said it best. Winning cures pretty much everything that ails any franchise. Contracts the Browns must consider cutting in the 2023 offseason. This is from the Bleacher Report. Number 1, Anthony Schwartz, slated to make $1.1 million in 2023, $1.3 million in 2024. I get it. He's got to produce. He has been a disappointment as a third-round pick. Number 2, Jacob Phillips will make $1.1 million this season. Final year, he's under contract. Flash potential to be a decent contributor. He's been injured pretty much for his entire time here. There's been some major injury he's been dealing with. Number 3, Jordan Elliott. Elliott scheduled to make $2.7 million in the final year of his rookie contract. Salary does not match overall production from the defensive lineman. 7 quarterback hits, 2.5 sacks in 3 seasons. None of these contracts really move the needle as far as the dollar figure. But the point is, young guys got to produce. These are draft picks. They've gotten every chance. I would imagine there's going to be a sense of urgency to win with the front office and the coaching staff, because they're going to have to – they got to get to the playoffs next year.
Oh, 100% they have to get to the playoffs next year. But what you're talking about here, but if you add those 3 contracts together, you're talking about $5 million. I mean, and with the salary cap where it is now, I mean, if that's the biggest thing you need to move on from, I don't know what to say. I mean, and even still, you're going to keep Anthony Schwartz around because you want him to have a full year of OTAs, a full summer with Deshaun Watson. Jacob Phillips, there were, times as a rookie, played well, missed a lot of time. A lot of people thought he was going to be a solid contributor in year 2. Ended up tearing his bicep early in joint practice with the New York Giants. Wasn't back till late in the season when basically the season was over at that point anyway. Jordan Elliott at $2.7 million. Look, you draft Jordan Elliott. You drafted him right around pick 100. Now that he's going to be in the last year of his 4-year deal at $2.7 million, that's not a terrible number to pay for somebody to be a reserve defensive tackle. I think the problem is people don't like Jordan Elliott at $2.7 million because he's a starting tackle. And look, I'll be honest, Jordan Elliott as a starting defensive tackle has been pretty underwhelming to this point. There's, no way around it, all truth and honesty. But all of these guys are going to be around. The question is, do they survive the summer? Do they get moved? Look, somebody will still gamble on an Anthony Schwartz who runs a 4.29. Jacob Phillips, linebackers go down like running backs go down. There's always going to be room for running linebackers in the NFL. Look at Reggie Ragland, who sat on the Vegas practice squad for as long as he did, and all of a sudden Browns needed a linebacker, brought him in late in the year, and was still able to produce. I understand some issues with these guys and maybe some disappointment with these players overall, but these players are not making a ton of money. The Browns will be able, and even if you did get rid of all 3 of these contracts, $5 million isn't getting you much on the open market. It's not even going to get you a Paris Campbell, most likely.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of what I was getting. It doesn't move the needle, so you err on the side of it being with you a year too longer, or a year longer than getting rid of them a year too soon. Jeff Lloyd.
Well, that being said, also if they call, they're not going to hang up the phone if somebody calls asking about these guys. No. But they're in a similar position they were last year with Dearness and Kareem. Sure, give me a call. And guess what? For 7 months, nobody called.
Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast. Always great stuff. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Jeff.
Appreciate you, Dave. Everybody have a great day.
All right, Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Locked On Browns podcast. We continue talking Browns. Casey Kinnamon from Dawg Pound Daily straight ahead. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I think the Browns should trade a 3rd and 5th round pick for Tyler Lockett.
All right, as always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon, Dawg Pound Daily. Casey, if you can get Tyler Lockett for a 3rd and a 5th, are you doing it?
Probably not, honestly. A 3rd round pick for someone who's 31, probably heading towards the downside of his career. I like his skill set, but his contract's kind of wonky. He's 9.7 this year. The next 2 years is 15.3. I just don't see the Browns signing up for that. Maybe they could talk him into restructuring so he could hit free agency sooner. But, there's a lot of moving pieces there. And I will say this, I saw an alarming trend of him making a lot of business decisions where he would catch the ball and just give himself up. Well, that might be good to elongate his career. It really doesn't do much on maximizing, a per play basis from one of your receivers, and maybe sends the wrong message to the rest of the room.
Yeah, that's not what you're looking for with Deshaun Watson. You want a guy that's going to get yards after catch and turn, those 4 or 5 yard passes into 12, 13-yard gains. All right. Early practices at the Senior Bowl. Princeton, not really a hotbed for NFL players, but Mike Renner likes what he sees from one of the wide receivers. This is courtesy of It's Just Football, Pro Football Focus.
My last standout from the American squad was Andre Yosevich. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. The Princeton wide receiver.
Okay.
I said not a great wide receiver class down here, but he has unique size-speed combination. 6'2", 212. Reportedly going to run the 4.3. He's looked fast here out on tape. I love the ball skills. He made an over-the-shoulder grab. It wasn't in the one-on-ones. It was just an open route time. Over-the-shoulder grab, though, that was high-level ball tracking, made it look easy. I think those ball skills are going to be huge for a guy that size. You always love that from a speedier wide receiver. And then just looking like he belonged compared to the tape that he put on at Princeton, where corners he's going up against, they're not NFL caliber. He could just run a straight line and get past those guys. Had to do a little bit more here. I liked what I saw from him early on.
All right, Casey, I know you have an article that is going to be dropping soon. 3 Senior Bowl wide receivers that the Browns should have on their radar, and Yosevich is going to be one of them. But let's go through that. Number 3, Trey Tucker from the University of Cincinnati. Take us through what you saw with him.
Tucker is speed incarnate. He's the perfect slot receiver. He's diminutive in size. That's what's going to knock him down in the draft. But he's also the reason he's going to be available probably day 3. We're talking 5'8", 187. But he's going to run in the lower 4.3s, probably about 4.33. Just speed, and it's not speed for the sake of speed. He knows how to get open early in routes. This is what you need to do. That's what the Browns need. They need a slot receiver who can manufacture easy yards, and he's the guy that could do that. But he has a plus because he's also really good in the return game. So he's someone that, while he's learning the ropes, could also be helping you out as a starting punt returner from day one. And that's something this team could use so that DPJ isn't forced into that duty, on a game-by-game basis.
He's actually a really nice kid, too. He played high school football at Cuyahoga Valley Christian Academy. Have had the opportunity to talk to him as well. All right, Yosevich is your second one. What do you see in Andrea Yosevich from Princeton? So he's got that tie to the front office. He's an Ivy League guy.
Yeah, they're going to like that aspect. But every year we kind of get this where there becomes a darling who we didn't know anything about, who kind of explodes during these All-Star games or during the Combine. And last year it was Christian Watson. This is very similar. This kid's 6'2" and change, 212 pounds, and ridiculous speed. He set an NCAA record for the 60-meter in the decathlon. I mean, he has speed for days. And it's not just that. He's going to have a 40-inch vert. There was a report that he bench pressed 370 pounds last week. He is just a freak athlete. But it's not just, like I said earlier with Tucker, it's not speed for the sake of speed. This kid is fluid. He's a smooth mover when you watch him. It looks effortless, and he has great body control. He has excellent ball skills. He's going to be someone that, someone's going to fall in love with. And because of the competition he went up against, people might sleep on him. I still don't see him getting outside of day 2. I think that he's just too good of an athlete, and someone's going to take a stab on him, and rightly so. If you look at Watson, came out of nowhere, got drafted in the second round, started off slow. People were down on him for some drops. But by the end of the season, he was probably Green Bay's biggest bright spot going into next year, I think Yosevich could be that for somebody, and the Browns would be wise to look at him.
All right, number 1, just a great name from Brigham Young. Puka Nacua, wide receiver from Brigham Young. What do you like about him?
There's nothing I don't like about Puka Nacua. I mean, he's going to be the guy I break a table for just pounding it. I'm going to get drugged for this, but like when I look at Puka Nacua, I see what I saw in Cooper Kupp when he was at the Senior Bowl. This kid's just a complete receiver, does everything. And his speed's not his calling card, but he doesn't lack it. He's going to run in the 4.4s. but he's just a complete receiver, knows how to set up DBs, understands leverage, gets open easy. He's excellent down the field. He has things he needs to clean up, but he's the guy who's going to come in and he's automatically no worse than your fourth receiver, and he's going to work his way up that depth chart rapidly, and he's going to just raise the floor of the room automatically. And over time, he's somebody that I believe could easily be a 2 in the league. And so for the Browns, like they need help, obviously, and they need speed. So they might go with one of these shiftier guys. But I think if you go with someone like Puka Nacua, you're going to get someone who's going to be able to help you as a rookie in the receiving game, and someone that could grow with Deshaun Watson. That's something this team desperately needs.
Yeah, we saw earlier in the show, the Browns wide receivers had the least separation in the entire NFL last season. All right, another name to listen out for this weekend, wide receiver, Houston wide receiver Tank Dell. Pro Football Focus guys thinking he could be a second rounder. Here is Mike Renner.
Tank Dell, Houston wide receiver.
Oh, totally.
This is a setting where, yeah, the one-on-ones he's supposed to excel, but my God, he was untouchable at the line of scrimmage. His routes were crisp as can be. He has a level of dynamism that I think every team in the NFL is chasing. I thought of him as probably a mid to late day tour, kind of just based off of tape early on. I'm getting sold on this guy as probably a second rounder at this point, middle of the second round.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, in this class, I could certainly see it. He's my number one guy as well. I have to go with Tank Dell too. Now, what did he officially came in at, what was it, 5'8", 163? I mean, he is small. And so when you talk about this class, even for the people that like Tank Dell a ton, you can't be talking about a first rounder. He is just too small for that, even if you don't love this wide receiver class. And I think that Tank Dell brings something to this wide receiver class that a lot of other receivers just don't, right? I mean, you mentioned it. The way this guy is able to get out of his break, the way that he is able to flip his hips, the way that he is able to stop on a dime is so impressive.
Yeah, the size is a huge concern. If you're a $183, you better be really quick and fast.
He wishes he was a $183. That kid, he's light in the socks. He's explosive. He's gaining an army of support down there, and rightly so. That footage. I mean, he's super sudden. He's a very violent route runner. Real hard breaks, which it's fun to watch. But over time, that also lends itself to injury easier. The way I looked at it when I was looking at the receivers, when I was looking at Tank Dell, it's kind of the reason I went with Tucker is because I think you're going to get the same things out of Tucker that you could get out of Dell, but you're going to get them much later. He's not going to be a high second rounder, and I don't think the Browns are going to, go that route where they'd have to trade up to get someone. So it kind of takes the Browns out of the running for someone like Dell, but he's gaining an army of support right now, and he's a ton of fun to watch. So, just sit back and get your popcorn and watch that kid break off defensive backs this weekend.
Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. We will continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. So 3 things we need to see, or we should see from the Browns in 2023. This from Dog Pound Daily. Number 3, Cleveland's defense will be better. Boy, it better be, or it could be a long, long season. Number 2, Nick Chubb will move to number 2 all-time in Browns rushing history. That would be behind only Jim Brown. And number 1, Deshaun Watson will get the Browns back to the playoffs. And Casey, all those, I think all those kind of interlock. If this defense isn't better under Jim Schwartz, it's going to be a long, long football season.
Yeah, I'm not here for that. They have to be better. They will be better. If you just look at it from an aspect of accountability, that's going to come with Jim Schwartz and buy-in. That's the major key. When you're in a defensive meeting and the guy who's holding the whole meeting has led a team to the Super Bowl, that's going to just command buy-in. So I think just those two factors alone are going to elevate this defense, and you're going to see a better effort on the field because he's not going to stand for anything less. It doesn't matter where you were drafted or what your status was before he got there. Your play on the field is going to determine where you stand in that defense, and I think that's what this defense needs. So, yeah, Jim Schwartz, just him being there is going to elevate the D.
Are you concerned at all about Deshaun Watson? Again, when they made the trade, I thought top 5 quarterback. I underestimated how long the layoff was and the new system. Do you think he gets back to, what we expected of him with a full off season and not having to sit out the beginning part of the regular season?
He has to, or this whole thing's a failure. I mean, that's point blank. You gave a man a ton of money to be what you wanted him to be, and even if he just gets back to that 2020 form of himself, I think that we'd all be satisfied with that. But the expectation was for him to even grow beyond that in this system. And what we saw over those last 6 games didn't lead you to believe that was going to happen. So I do believe long-term he will be fine. But this thing has to come together quickly when the season starts. Within those first 3-4 games, you need to see exactly what this team needs to be in the ultimate, and that's what a top 5 quarterback run in the show. The AFC is so tightly contested that you have to have that in order to succeed. Just look at the teams that were in the playoffs. They were all first-round picks on the AFC side for the starting quarterbacks. There's a reason. It's because of that level of quarterback races everything around them, and Deshaun has to be that for the Browns, or this whole thing's a failure.
Yeah, I mean, Burrow isn't going anywhere, Mahomes isn't going anywhere, Allen isn't going anywhere, and oh, by the way, now there's Trevor Lawrence, who looks like he's going to live up to that high draft status as well. All right, what areas do you think the Browns need immediate veteran help in, and do they go free agent or do they go trade route to do it? In other words, what positions do you think they need immediate upgrades?
For me, and this is a must-have, is they must have veteran defensive tackles. They also need to draft defensive tackles, but you can't ask that draft pick to come in and anchor an interior defensive line from day one. That's unrealistic. It doesn't happen. Look this season with Jordan Davis in Philadelphia. The kid's playing less than 20 snaps a game because they have veterans in front of him that are getting the job done, and that's exactly what Jim Schwartz needs in his defense. So I think you might get a variety of ways. They need 2 starters at that position. They can maybe piecemeal their depth through what they already do have, but they need starters in that. And I think you at least go get one in free agency, and you probably trade for the other. And this can't be a guardrail thing. This can't be like, well, they can only be 26. And no, you need help, and you need help now. You go get Fletcher Cox or Linval Joseph or Akeem Hicks. You go get big bodies and put them in there and let them do their thing. We'll see where the trade could come from. That's always like someone like Brady retiring today. Who knows what becomes available in Tampa Bay? This thing's fluid, but I think it's going to come from both areas, free agency and trades.
When you look at, in order to trade, you're going to have to give up something of value to get something of value. You don't have the draft capital to do it. You don't have the first-round picks. You do have a second-round pick, but who are some veterans you wouldn't be surprised if they traded?
Well, one, unfortunately, isn't even really a veteran, and it's not something I want to see happen, but I think that it could go this way, and that's Greg Newsome. He could be very enticing for a team. He's still on his rookie contract. He's a starting caliber outside corner who's just coming in. You put a little diversity on tape this year, moving inside, but he's obviously an outside corner. The Browns kind of have 2 outside corners already there with Denzel with his contract and an emerging Emerson. So, unfortunately, I think that Greg Newsome may become a tradable piece. But as far as veterans, I look at someone like Wyatt Teller. I think that the Browns could get that production on the inside from other places on the offensive line, and it might make Wyatt Teller a name who's expendable and could garner some decent return in the trade.
Yeah, those were the 2 that really jumped out to me as well. And you got to remember, you're paying Bitonio, you're paying Conklin, you're paying Teller. Those are 3 guys. You just can't continue. That's not a sustainable model for offensive line because you got to pay a quarterback, you got to pay wide receivers.
Yeah, and you got decisions to make at left tackle, and And some of these guys like DPJ is going to come up. You're going to have to invest in other areas. So you might have to allocate differently and spread that wealth around. And unfortunately, Wyatt Teller may find himself the guy in the musical chairs without a seat when it all ends.
Casey Kinnamon, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right, Casey Kinnamon, always good stuff. Make sure you check him out. Dog Pound Daily. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.